Can you imagine being in a position where you get the opportunity to obtain dual citizenship for the country that one of your parents was born in, and you started the process, and you're 2.5 years in the process? You've already spent thousands of dollars to your lawyer. You have all of the documents in place. You are simply on an extended waiting list from the consulate to have the appointment to hand them over these documents, get your stamp, get your dual citizenship for you and your family, and move on with your life and your new dream. Well, then imagine being in a position where suddenly that country is trying to pass a new law that's going to block that opportunity for you. Yes, my friends, this is the position that I woke up to find myself in a few days ago, along with many other family members, friends, people that I know, people that I don't know, who are currently trying to get dual Italian citizenship. So, what does this have to do with astrology? I'm going to get there, I promise. And it's going to be, I hope this is going to be a juicy, informative, interesting video for you, especially if you are interested in a branch of astrology called Horary Astrology, which is a specific, unique branch of astrology that allows you to ask a pointed question to an astrologer. The astrologer will then cast a chart for the moment that he or she understands your question. And in that chart lies the answer to your question. It is an incredible divination tool. It is a very specific branch of astrology that has incredible rules and a specific system all of its own that is unlike natal astrology, unlike many other branches of astrology, and requires a great deal of intent study in order to master. And back in June of 2024, I graduated from a professional level course that was given by Deborah Holding at her school for traditional astrology, which is based in England. And Deborah Holding was one of my instructors. Wade Caves was another one of my instructors. Several other astrologers who are a part of this amazing school all taught me this branch of Horary Astrology. And so I have learned the techniques, and what I've been doing over the past several months is applying the techniques and studying in my own way, not professionally yet. It's not offered as a service yet on my website. That will happen in 2025. But my preferred method before I go and offer a service, after I learn a specific branch of astrology, I like to practice it. I like to really get comfortable with using the techniques before I offer it as a service. So that's what these series of videos are about. It's about me being an open student, because we are all students. Even though I've been doing this work professionally for over 20 years, I am an eternal student, just like you are, and always learning something new. And so these horary astrology videos are me learning and implementing the techniques that I've learned in real time with you guys, able to watch so that you can see the outcome of the questions that I'm asking and how the rules, the techniques are applied. So before I get into sharing my screen, sharing the questions that there are two Horary charts that I'm going to share. I definitely want to dial back and introduce myself. For those of you who know me and my work and are part of my channel, welcome. It is great to see you. Thank you for being here. And for those of you who are new here, welcome. I hope you decide to subscribe and stick around. My name is Maria Di Simone. I am a professional astrologer, and you can find out more about me and my work over at insightfulastrology.com, where I offer personal consultations. I have an entire astrology school teaching astrology classes through beginners level all the way through advanced professional, if you want to be professional. And currently, my 2025 special year ahead video horoscopes are released and available for purchase over at insightfulastrology.com. So if you are interested in the amazing, life-changing cosmic events that are happening in 2025, go and check out your forecasts there. Now, I will preface this video, even though we're several minutes in already, by reminding you that this is not an instructional video where I'm going to be teaching you techniques of Horary astrology specifically. What is happening in this video is I am demonstrating what I've learned. I am putting forth a question that I have asked and another question that a relative asked, and applying the techniques to allow myself the space to practice and to grow in my skills. And secondarily, it may serve as a teaching tool for some of you who are either interested in possibly learning horary astrology at some point, or who are already proficient in horary astrology and want some fun videos on YouTube to maybe track the charts with and offer your comments and insights. And I definitely invite you, if you are a horary astrologer, I invite you to go ahead and put some comments in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts and insights. If you are not a horary astrologer or a student of horary astrology in a serious way, if you are not studying either with an instructor, or you haven't completed a course, or you haven't read several horary astrology books and practiced it, then please refrain from offering any of your insights in the comments, because you don't understand this technique and how to apply it. You would do it incorrectly. And again, this is not natal astrology. The rules are so different. And so it's exciting because this, I like to call Horary astrology, this is some Nostradamus level shit in astrology, because that is the type of astrology that Nostradamus practiced. And ancient astrologers used this technique very successfully to give pointed predictions. Yes or no answers. Will this happen? Won't it happen? And it is amazing when applied correctly. This tool is amazing. So this whole thing on a personal level with my citizenship. And at the end of the video, if you are interested in the Italian laws that are possibly being changed, I have 4 pages of the legal stuff that I will read at the end of this video, because I know that most of you are only here for the astrology. But for those of you who want to understand the bigger dynamics behind why my Italian citizenship is now threatened because of the changes in the Italian ministry, I'm going to read the 4 pages of legalese after I do the astrology. But what basically happened was, a couple of days ago, I found out that there might be a threat to my ability to obtain dual citizenship. And I had contracted a lawyer 2.5 years ago to get the dual citizenship for myself and for my 2 children. And then my 2 children, their spouses can, as long as they learn some basic Italian and take a test, they will get their citizenship. And then my children's children will automatically get Italian citizenship. So I wanted that for my family, because when my father was 17 years old, he came to this country. I'm in the United States, I'm in New York, so I am an American citizen. He came to New York and left his country in Italy. He was born in Naples, Italy, small farm town called Rocca Rainola, and that is where my father's family is from. And he came here at the age of 17. And when I was about 12 years old, so this is many years later, 1987, he was naturalized as an American citizen. And we have always had very strong ties to my Italian heritage, my Italian culture, my roots, my family connections. And he was forced at that time to renounce his Italian citizenship in order to become an American citizen. The law at that time forced you to renounce one citizenship to get the other. You couldn't have both. Years later, the law changed and you didn't have to renounce your Italian citizenship. So I have actually one relative, my uncle, who is younger than my father. He has dual citizenship. He didn't have to renounce his Italian citizenship to get his American citizenship. But there was something called juris sanguine, which is basically a bloodline right that we have as descendants of a parent from our lineage or a grandparent, and in some cases, even a great grandparent, because of the bloodline, you have an automatic right to become an Italian citizen. And this is how it was recognized in Italy for many years. And so I had applied for the dual citizenship under this uh, tenant and under this ability of the bloodline and the descent because my father was born there and I supposedly have a right, along with my children, to be an Italian citizen and have all of the rights of an Italian citizen and also be an American citizen and to have dual citizenship. And it's a very attractive option for me and my family for many reasons. For me, it's really emotional and cultural and heritage. And that's why I want it. I want it as a way to honor my father and my family's history and to reconnect to my roots in Italy. And I want it for my children and my future grandchildren because I think it is an amazing opportunity to have that Italian passport because once you do, you have a passport to all of the countries connected in the EU. And you are able to travel freely abroad. And that's a really attractive opportunity to have because we don't know what the future brings. And it might be really nice someday to be able to live abroad. My grandchildren may want to study abroad, and they'll have a much easier time doing that if they are citizens. To buy property in Italy will be so much easier if we have our citizenship. So there are so many reasons why I wanted to do this. And so I put the process in motion. And I got my lawyer from my cousin Joe and his mom Valerie. And so, for those of you who know me and my work, you may know my cousin Joe Peretta. He's a psychic medium. I've had done podcasts with him. I've traveled with him to Italy twice already. And his mother Valerie, who she and I are very close. She's around my age, and she's my buddy, my travel buddy. And so Valerie and Joe got this lawyer, referred me to the lawyer, and we all applied around the same time. They got on the consulate waiting list a month or maybe two before me, and they hired the lawyer a little bit before me. So I'm slightly behind them, but we're all around the same time period. And so all three of us are doing this application process together. And we've been so excited about it. Traveled to Italy several times already. I am just it's part of my life dream as I get older, not to live there necessarily, but to have the opportunity to freely travel. I've already explained that. So when this new ruling happened, it now would negate my ability potentially to become a citizen and Joe and Valerie's as well. So understandably, we were kind of devastated about this. And when it comes to horary astrology, you can't just ask questions in a sloppy way. You can't just, every day ask a question or for any minor thing going on in your life, ask a question because it dilutes the power of horary astrology. You have to be very judicious and very intentional when you ask a horary question. And so it has to be an urgent matter. And again, you have to be very pointed, very specific. And I was thinking about this and I realized, this is an urgent matter for me and I want to know. It's a valid horary. So I asked the question, will I get my dual citizenship? And I'm about to put up the chart and I'm going to give you my judgment. And I invite you to reflect on that and add your comments if you are qualified to do so. And then I am going to put up a second chart, which is my cousin Joe, because the very next day, it turns out he asked me the same question. And my family knows, they know the drill when it comes to horary astrology. I cannot coach you. I cannot entice you. I cannot invite you to ask a question. It has to be a question that you think about on your own, that you come to me to, because that is the only way it's a valid question. And so the next day, he just happened to say, can you run a horary for me and ask if I'm going to get my dual citizenship? And I laughed. I was like, okay, it's a valid question. So I have a chart for him as well. I'm going to put both of the charts up, but first I'm going to show you mine. And now we get to the charts. So here we are. Thank you for listening to my long introduction. And I am now sharing my screen and you should be able to see the Horary chart. So one of the rules about Horary astrology is that there is a specific house system that you must use called the Regiomontanus house system. And this is the house system that is widely used in for the practice of this specific technique. And so I have the chart set to the Regiomontanus system, and I did prepare horary wheels. However, I think it's easier to look at the chart in this format. So I'm going to leave this chart up and I'm going to tell you how I arrived at my judgment. So I'm asking the question here. I am the querent. The querent is the person asking the question, and the querent is always symbolized by the first house, any planets that might be in the first house, and the planet that rules the first house. Okay, so here we are. I am Mercury, and I am ruled by Mercury, which went into Scorpio. So it's an early degree Scorpio. And the matter, it is a couple of different houses that you want to look at. So this is a legal question. Will I get dual citizenship? So this is an international question connected to international law and overseas matters. And so the ninth house will be implicated. And the ninth house is ruled by Saturn. And here is Saturn in the 10th house in Pisces, retrograde. But the 10th house in a chart is always going to give you an answer about a court decision. And this is related to a court decision because the Italian consulates now have to decide if they're going to adopt this ruling, which is the part that's in process now. And if they do, which they possibly will, they have to set a date for when it goes into effect. And so this is the 10th house. The 10th house is the court decision, and the 10th house is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is conjunct my ascendant. Now, there is a rule in Horary astrology that when a planet is, let me just erase that. When a planet is conjunct the next house within 5 degrees, you're going to read it for that next house cusp. So that is one rule that I learned with Horary astrology. And so here we have Jupiter at 21 degrees, and it is less than 5 degrees conjunct the ascendant here. So Jupiter is angular. And having a benefic planet angular is a very positive indication by itself. Doesn't mean that it's an automatic yes, but that is a very positive indication to look at. So the general feel of a horary chart is important to look at first. And if you have angular planets, they are speaking loudly to the energy of the question and to the answer of that question. So here we have an angular Jupiter. Jupiter is the ruler of the court decision, and that very much says the court decision is coming to me. Okay, that is a very auspicious indicator. And the moon is also angular. The moon is here at 3 degrees, conjunct the midheaven of the chart. The moon in a horary chart is it's the co-ruler of the question itself, and it can give you so much insight into how the outcome of that question will unfold. And the moon can also be the co-ruler of the querent, but it is always the co-ruler of the question itself. So the moon is really important, and the moon's applying aspects indicate, like I said, the unfolding of the event, of the matter at hand. And so that moon being angular, I think very much symbolizes the emotional nature of this question for me, the family tribal nature of this question for me, and my emotional attachment to it. And when one of the lights are angular, that can also be an indication that the truth or the information will come to light pretty soon. So that is interesting to note as well. But now, what we have to figure out in order to find an answer, now we know where we're looking, but now in order to get an answer, we have to see, is there a positive applying relationship between the ruler of the first house and the ruler of the ninth house or the 10th house, possibly? I went mainly with the ruler of the ninth house because this is an international law matter, and I looked at the 10th house secondarily, but they are both involved. So I was looking for that relationship. Or if the ruler of the first and the ninth or the first and the 10th aren't making a connection, does the moon help out in any way? What other information is there? So the interesting thing about the 10th house here is that it is the court decision, and the moon being here suggests to me that there may be another change coming up because the moon is fluctuating. And I do believe that there might be another change to this ruling, to this decision that's coming up, and it might not be a final thing. So let's see. Do we have application here? I'm going to clear all the drawings and start now. So Mercury and Saturn. Saturn is the ruler of the ninth. Well, we actually have a direct trine, an applying trine here between Mercury in Scorpio to Saturn in in Pisces, ruler of the first, ruler of the ninth. And that is a very positive indication of a yes. That is also a mutual application because Saturn is retrograde. So Saturn is moving towards Mercury while Mercury is moving towards Saturn. And that is a trine, and that is the easiest manner of perfection to have. It is a very auspicious yes. But we get a yes in another way as well. When we look at the moon, we are also seeing another tie in to a yes because the moon is translating light. We don't need it, but it is. It is translating light between Mercury and Saturn because the moon just separated from a trine to Mercury and is now applying to a conjunction with Saturn. The moon is also applying to a square with Jupiter. And that contact is showing up as happening as well. So even though Jupiter, the ruler of the 10th, is not making any favorable aspect with significators, we don't need it to because you also want to look to any planets that are in the 10th itself, because this is also indicative of the court decision. It is how, the court decision is made, all the details. So even though Jupiter over here at the angle, which is actually very positive, isn't connecting by any aspect with Mercury, and it is by square to Jupiter, we have positive applications. The Mercury, I'm sorry, is making an applying trine to Saturn. And if you wanted to include Neptune, the outer planets, in ancient Horary astrology, we didn't use the outer planets, but if you wanted to, you could. It can sometimes give information. I tend to use them more when they're angular, but it is making an applying trine to Neptune in the 10th house. And again, the moon is translating light. The moon is there angular at the top of the chart, separating from Mercury, applying to Saturn. And then it just seems like no matter where you go in this chart, the answer is yes. So when I saw this chart, I was really very encouraged very excited. And I thought, I thought that, this was a radical chart. So how you determine whether or not a chart is radical or is a true chart, a couple of different ways. You want to see if it does connect to the nativity in some way, in some important way. And it does. This chart, I think, is radical because when we look at my nativity, my nodes of the moon are here. They're about 21 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius. So my south node is here, north node would be here, and my natal Jupiter, which rules international legal matters, is conjunct Saturn in the horary. It is exactly conjunct Saturn, and Saturn is in the 10th house of the court decision, and Saturn rules the ninth house of the horary, which is international law and overseas matters. So I thought this was a radical chart. I feel very confident in my judgment that, yes, I will get dual Italian citizenship. And if I get it, obviously my children will get it. So it becomes like an automatic thing. They just have to go to the consulate. So that is my first chart. I was so encouraged by this, especially because right now the reality is that there's this big unknown. And at the moment, it's a no. At the moment, I'm stalled because this is just happening, and the consulates and they're all trying to figure out, are they adopting this, and if so, when? What is the date? So what I think might be happening is, because I've been on this waiting list for 2.5 years already, I may be closer to getting called. And it is very likely that I'm going to get called before this is turned into law and it affects me, and I will be grandfathered in, and so will my children. And that's what I think is going to be happening. So that's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting. And I will keep you posted on an update to this horary. Obviously, I'm not going to know about that for probably many months. So I don't know when I'll be able to give you an update on this horary, but hopefully you can see how exciting the chart is and how the judgment really, I can confidently say yes to that horary. So the very next day, I'm texting with Valerie and Joe in our group Italian text chat. And he said to me, pull a horary for me. I want to know, am I getting Italian citizenship? And I was like, all right, dude, it's a valid chart. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't coach you. You asked on your own. Here's the chart. Now, Joe asked one day later from me. So the moon is in the same sign, but it moved and there are different energies. Obviously, the chart's going to look very different, but he still got a yes. And I'm going to show you his chart next. And so here is the second chart. Joe is the one that asked me. Okay, so he asked it, will I get citizenship? Because he asked the question and not me, he is the querent. So now Joe is the ascendant ruler, and Joe is any planet in the first house. The same rules are applying. The ninth house is the international law, overseas matters. It's ruled by Mars, and it has Venus in the ninth house. And Jupiter, just so happens, is also the ruler of the 10th house in this chart. 10th house is the court decision. So let's dissect this chart. Joe is Saturn, and Joe is also the moon. Okay, the moon is in the first house. The moon is him. Now, this is very reflective of how dysregulated Joe was at the time that he asked the question. He is emotional. He is depressed about it. He is confused. He is frustrated. All of that is very much symbolized by Saturn, the moon, and Neptune being there in the first house in Pisces, right? You can really see a lot about Joe's situation right now. Joe's very, very upset about this. And yet, look at what is going on here. So At first, when we see Mars and then we see Jupiter here, it's not encouraging. Mars is in Cancer and it's at the 21st degree, and Saturn had already separated. Mars separated from a trine to Saturn a long time ago. So there is no connection between Mars and Saturn by itself. Same thing with Venus, the planet in the ninth house. Saturn is Venus already separated from that trine a long time ago. It's over. That's a baked potato. Jupiter is here in the fourth house, 21 degrees, and there's no relationship between the ascendant ruler, Saturn, and Jupiter. So initially, you would look at this chart and you would say, no, but you would be too quick to judge the chart without considering some of the other rules of Horary astrology. And this is why you can't just read a book and decide you're a Horary astrologer. This is why you have to learn the techniques and be able to look at it in a deeper way. And sure enough, in this chart, it is also a yes, because the moon becomes the main story. The moon is the querent in this chart. It's in the first house. And the moon is the co-ruler of the question itself. And the moon is applying to both the ruler of the ninth and the ruler of the 10th. Yes, it is a square again to the ruler of the 10th, but it is applying to a trine with the ruler of the ninth. It is also applying to make a trine to the planet in the ninth, which is the international law, the overseas matters. And that square with the court decision, even though these planets, the moon is square Jupiter, and in both charts, that was a square. This is a square with something called reception. And that lightens it up a little bit because the moon is in the sign ruled by Jupiter, that Jupiter rules. So that brings reception to the square, and that somewhat mitigates the stress of it. It makes it a little bit easier to work with, almost like it's a sextile and not a square, almost. And I had the square with reception in my chart as well, which I forgot to mention before. So the moon is doing something else here. The moon is also translating light between rulers. The moon just separated from a conjunction to Joe, ruler of the first, and is applying to both the ruler of the ninth and the ruler of the 10th. So the moon is once again translating light. There's a translation of light, and this is symbolizing that there's going to be a go-between. There's going to be someone who acts as an intermediary who makes this happen, who facilitates this. And in addition, Jupiter, the ruler of the 10th, is making a trine to the ascendant. So that's another positive indicator that I took into consideration. So all of this is very, very exciting. The moon is also applying to a trine with the ninth house cusp itself. There's a lot in this chart that brings support, that supports a yes answer. My chart was, I think, a louder, easier, clearer yes. This chart forces you to demonstrate more of the skillfully applied, nuanced rules of Horary astrology. And when you do that, you can see the magic that starts to happen. And I am not an expert on timing with when the event will happen. I'm going to go back to my horary chart though, because I had a thought about that in my own chart. Will I get citizenship? And I was wondering, can we make it? Is it as simple? Is it as loud as the looking at when will the moon get to Saturn or when, something like that. And if that's the case, then maybe it's 10 months, 13 minus 3, 10 months, maybe. But you can also look at it as when will there be uniting of Mercury to Saturn. And that is a little bit longer. And I don't know if that's the case, but I'm going to speculate here that it's going to be a little sooner than that. I'm going to speculate that with the angular energy here of Jupiter to the ascendant, and I'm getting more of like 3, 25, 24, 23, 22, 4 months perhaps. And I'm not strong on the timing yet. I'm really not. It could definitely be more of that 10 months that's showing up here with the moon to Saturn. But I'm going to stop at this point because that is something that I am still learning. And there are ways to indicate the timing. And I think that I'm going to be stronger once I see when this actually happens and then going back and finding the astrology that demonstrated the timing of when it happens. But that's what I have for this horary video as far as the astrology. And let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And now, if you are interested in this whole Italy law thing, oh my gosh, you could, if you're done with the astrology, you don't want to hear the rest, then you could turn off the video. But if you want to know about the like real life update and how stressful this was, I'm going to read this to you because some of you, this may apply to some of you. And I'm going to read this. It's from a website. I pulled up information and printed it out. So I'm just reading it straight from this website. And so let me take a sip of water. The landscape of Italian citizenship by descent has recently undergone a significant shift due to new interpretations of what's known as the minor issue. This development has the potential to impact thousands of applications for Italian citizenship, creating both challenges and opportunities for those seeking to reconnect with their Italian heritage. In this comprehensive post, we'll explore the recent changes, their historical context, and what they mean for aspiring Italian citizens. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. The whole thing was like 9 pages. I have the 4 main pages of explaining this, what's going on. The minor issue refers to a complex legal situation where an individual's claim to Italian citizenship may be affected by their ancestor's naturalization while the ancestor's child, the applicant's parent, grandparent, or great-grandparent, etc., was still a minor. What seems like a small detail has become a major point of contention in Italian citizenship law, with far-reaching consequences for many applicants. So here's the historical context. To truly understand the current situation, we need to look back at Italian citizenship law, which came into force on July 1st, 1912. This law, which governed Italian citizenship for most of the 20th century, contained 2 key provisions that are now at the center of the debate. Article 12 stated that children automatically followed citizenship status of the parent exercising paternal authority. In practice, this meant that if a father lost his Italian citizenship, for example, by naturalizing in another country, his minor children would also lose their Italian citizenship. Article 7, however, said something else. This article allowed Italian citizenship to citizens born and residing abroad to maintain their Italian citizenship, even if they were citizens of another country by birthright. This provision was particularly relevant for Italian immigrants and their descendants in countries with Jew solely citizenship laws, such as the United States. And this is why I was eligible, because of Article 7. For many years, Italian authorities tended to favor the interpretation of Article 7, allowing many individuals to claim their Italian citizenship, even if their ancestor had naturalized in another country. This interpretation was based on the idea that children born abroad to Italian parents were Italian citizens from birth, and this status was not automatically lost if their parent later naturalized in another country. It is important to note the concept of patria potesta, which played a crucial role in these laws. The legal concept, which translates to power of the father, gave fathers nearly absolute authority over their children. It wasn't until 1975 that this concept was replaced with responsabilità genitoriale, parental responsibility, reflecting changing societal norms and gender equality. So that's just mentioning that it used to be all about the male lineage and the female lineage didn't matter, but after 1975, that changed. Recent developments, and here's where I now have a problem. In 2023 and 2024, the Italian Court of Cassation, Italy's highest court, made two groundbreaking decisions that have shifted the interpretation of the law. One decision, number 17161 in 2023, this ruling emphasized the importance of Article 12, stating that minor children automatically lost their Italian citizenship when their father naturalized in another country. Decision number 454 in 2024, this decision further reinforced the interpretation favoring Article 12, solidifying the court's position on the minor issue. These rulings represent a significant departure from previous interpretation that consulates and lower courts applied for more than 30 years. And according to these new rulings, an individual would lose their Italian citizenship if their parents became a citizen of another country after 1912, while the individual was still a minor. It is worth noting that before 1975, minor in Italian law meant under 21 years old. After 1975, this changed to under 18 years old, adding another layer of complexity to these cases. And for me, it wouldn't matter because I was 12 years old when my father naturalized. So either way, it would screw me up. So the new ministerial guidelines. In response to these Court of Cassation decisions, on October 3rd of 2024, the Italian Ministry of the Interior issued a circular that aligns with these new interpretations. This circular is a significant development as it provides official guidance to all public administration authorities dealing with citizenship applications. Key points of this circular include public administration authorities are now instructed to reject citizenship applications affected by the minor issue. This new interpretation applies to cases where the Italian ancestor naturalized as a foreign citizen while their child, through whom the applicant claims citizenship, was a minor. That's me again. The circular applies to future applications only. Those already recognized as Italian citizens will not be affected by this change. So anybody who already got through, you're good. You're not going to lose your citizenship status. But for people like me in limbo, we'll see. Horary is promising. The lineage is not considered interrupted if it can be demonstrated that the ancestor who lost Italian citizenship during their minor age due to the parents' naturalization later reacquired Italian citizenship. This circular represents a major shift in how Italian citizenship by descent cases will be evaluated going forward, potentially affecting thousands of applicants and very possibly denying me and my family. But I'm going to trust my judgment on the horary charts. I'm going to keep my faith in those horaries because they were very compelling charts. And what are your thoughts? Let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.